The White Mountains of New Hampshire, blanketed in mist and legend, hold secrets that have defied explanation for centuries. It was here, on a cold February night in 2004, that Maura Murray disappeared without a trace. Her abandoned car, discovered on a desolate stretch of Route 112, is the last physical evidence of her presence. This enigmatic case has drawn countless theories, but none have provided answers until now. Jack Thompson, a grizzled paranormal investigator with more than a few ghost stories under his belt, arrives at the site. Jack is a rugged figure, with a touch of gray in his beard and eyes that have seen too much. His team, an eclectic mix of talents, steps out of the van. There's Sarah, the tech wizard, whose sarcasm is as sharp as her intellect. Mark, the ex-detective who approaches every mystery with a skeptical eye. And Grace, the medium, whose connection to the spiritual realm is both a gift and a curse. They set up their base camp near the site where Maura's car was found, surrounded by dense forest and an eerie silence that seems to press in on them. Sarah, setting up her equipment, quips, "I hope these ghosts aren't camera shy, because I've got a brand new lens." Jack surveys the area, his gaze intense. "Stay alert. This place has a reputation, and not just because of Maura." As night falls, the forest comes alive with strange sounds. The EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, device crackles to life with faint whispers, and the thermal cameras pick up fleeting shadows darting between the trees. Grace feels a chill run down her spine, her senses tingling with the presence of something otherworldly. Their investigation leads them deeper into the forest, towards an old, abandoned cabin rumored to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. Inside, they find symbols etched into the walls, cryptic and ancient. Grace touches one, her eyes rolling back as she enters a trance. "These are wards," she whispers, "to keep something in." The cabin's atmosphere grows thick with tension as Grace's trance deepens. The team watches, transfixed and uneasy, as she mutters in a language none of them understand. Suddenly, she gasps and snaps back to reality. "Something terrible happened here," Grace says, her voice trembling. "Maura isn't the only one who vanished in these woods." They review their footage and discover that the symbols match those used in ancient Celtic rituals. Sarah, sifting through local archives, finds accounts of disappearances dating back to the 1800s. It seems the forest has always been hungry. The next day, they venture to the nearest town, a quaint yet foreboding place called Woodsville. They meet with the local historian, Mr. Blackwood, who reveals more about the area's dark past. "These woods have always been feared," he says. "People talk of skinwalkers, shadow men, and worse. Maura's disappearance is just the latest chapter in a very old book." As they leave the town hall, a local approaches them, eyes wide with fear. "If you go into those woods, you won't come out," he warns. "People vanish. They say the spirits protect something ancient, something evil." That night, they set up camp deeper in the forest, near an old well that Mr. Blackwood mentioned. It's said to be a gateway to the underworld. As they settle in, the forest grows unnaturally silent. Jack's nerves are steel, but even he feels the weight of the night pressing down. Around the campfire, Sarah jokes to lighten the mood. "So, who wants to bet on how many ghosts we catch tonight?" Her attempt at humor falls flat as a blood-curdling scream pierces the air. They jump to their feet, flashlights sweeping the darkness. The scream fades into an eerie silence, leaving them shaken and on edge. "We're not alone," Jack says grimly. "And whatever's out there, it knows we're here." The investigation has only just begun, and already the team is plunged into a world where the line between the living and the dead blurs, and every shadow holds a threat. The next morning, the team stands around the ancient well that Mr. Blackwood described. It's overgrown with moss and vines, the stones weathered by centuries of exposure. Grace runs her fingers along the edge, feeling the cold, damp stones. "This well is said to be a gateway to the underworld," Grace says. "If the legends are true, this could be the epicenter of the disappearances." Sarah sets up the EVP device and infrared cameras around the well, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Let's see if we can get the dead to talk," she mutters, trying to mask her unease with sarcasm. Mark, ever the skeptic, rolls his eyes but helps anyway. "I don't believe in ghosts, but there's definitely something strange about this place." As the sun sets, the forest around them becomes eerily quiet. The wind seems to hold its breath, and the trees cast long, sinister shadows. Jack and Mark lower a camera into the well, the footage displaying on a nearby monitor. The screen shows the camera descending, revealing only darkness. Suddenly, the feed flickers and they catch glimpses of movement, a shadowy figure darting past the lens. "What the hell was that?" Jack exclaims, pulling the camera back up. Before they can analyze further, Grace enters a trance-like state again, her eyes rolling back. She starts to speak in a voice that's not her own, deep and menacing. "You have disturbed the resting place. Leave or suffer the consequences." The ground around the well begins to tremble, and they hear whispers, growing louder and more insistent. The EVP device goes wild, capturing a cacophony of voices, all saying the same thing: "Leave now." Suddenly, Grace snaps out of her trance, gasping for breath. "We need to get out of here," she pants. Something ancient and malevolent is waking up. The team hastily packs up their equipment and retreats from the well, the oppressive feeling following them like a shadow. They make their way to another location Mr. Blackwood mentioned, an old cemetery hidden deep within the forest. As they arrive, the full moon casts an eerie glow over the weathered tombstones. The names on the graves are barely legible, worn away by time. Jack sets up the cameras and motion detectors, while Sarah checks the thermal imaging equipment. "Let's hope this place is quieter than the well," Mark says, his attempt at humor falling flat in the tense atmosphere. Suddenly, the motion detectors go off, indicating movement among the graves. They shine their flashlights in the direction of the disturbance, but see nothing. Sarah checks the thermal imaging and gasps. There's something out there, and it's cold. Really cold. The temperature drops abruptly, their breath visible in the icy air. A thick fog rolls in, obscuring their vision. They hear footsteps getting closer and closer, but see no one. The team huddles together, their nerves fraying. Out of the fog, a figure emerges, tall, gaunt, and shrouded in darkness. Its eyes glow with a malevolent light. Grace steps forward, trying to communicate, but the figure raises a skeletal hand, and she's thrown back by an unseen force. Jack pulls out his EMF meter, which goes off the charts. "This is not a normal haunting," he shouts. "We need to retreat now." As they back away, the figure dissipates into the fog, but the feeling of being watched remains. They hurry back to their base camp, hearts pounding and minds racing. The realization dawns on them: whatever they're dealing with is not bound by the laws of the living world. Back at camp, they review the footage and data. The camera captured the figure's appearance, but it's distorted, as if reality itself was bending around it. The EVP recordings are filled with growls and hisses, incomprehensible but undeniably sinister. "We're in way over our heads," Mark admits, his skepticism shattered. "This isn't just a ghost hunt anymore." Jack nods, his face grim. "We need to figure out what we're dealing with and how to stop it, before it stops us." The next stop on their investigation is an old inn, the Red Lion, located on the outskirts of Glastonbury. The inn, built in the 16th century, has a history of mysterious deaths and is rumored to be haunted by the spirits of those who perished within its walls. As they arrive, the sun is setting, casting long shadows over the cobblestone courtyard. The building looms before them, its dark windows like empty eye sockets staring out into the night. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of old wood and dust. "Welcome to the Red Lion," says the innkeeper, a haggard-looking man named Mr. Hawkins. "I've seen things here that would turn your hair white." The team sets up their equipment in the dimly lit parlor, where a massive fireplace dominates the room. Grace, feeling a familiar chill, closes her eyes and reaches out with her senses. "There's definitely something here," she whispers. "Something angry, They split into pairs. Jack and Sarah take the ground floor, while Mark and Grace head upstairs to the guest rooms. The floors creak under their feet, each sound magnified in the silence of the old building. In one of the rooms, Grace sits on the edge of a bed, feeling a cold presence beside her. She turns on the EVP recorder and asks, "Is anyone here with us?" A faint whisper responds, "Help, US." The voice is distorted, filled with pain and fear. Downstairs, Jack and Sarah hear footsteps in the hallway. They follow the sound, but it always seems just ahead of them. Sarah's flashlight flickers, and she curses under her breath. This place is messing with our gear. Jack stops at a portrait hanging on the wall. The eyes of the figure seem to follow him. Creepy old paintings. Why is it always the creepy old paintings? Suddenly, a shadow darts across the room, knocking over a chair. They both jump, hearts racing. "We need to get this on camera," Jack says, setting up the tripod. Upstairs, Mark and Grace hear a loud bang, followed by a series of rapid knocks. They rush to the source, a locked door at the end of the hall. Grace tries the handle, but it won't budge. "We need to get in there," she insists. Mark uses his shoulder to force the door open. Inside, they find a small room with a single window. A cold breeze blows through the broken glass, carrying the faint sound of voices. "Look at this," Mark says, pointing to a hidden trapdoor in the floor. They pry it open and shine a light into the darkness below. The beam reveals a narrow staircase leading down into a hidden basement. They descend cautiously, the air growing colder with each step. In the basement, they find old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. But something else catches their eye. A series of symbols carved into the stone walls, glowing faintly. Grace feels a surge of energy and shudders. These are not just any symbols. They're wards, to keep something in. The basement of the Red Lion feels like another world entirely. The symbols carved into the walls seem to pulse with a life of their own. Grace traces one with her fingers, feeling an electric tingle. These wards are ancient. Whoever made them was trying to contain something powerful. Mark examines the carvings more closely. If these wards are meant to keep something in, then what's the crypt for? They move further into the basement, finding a hidden doorway behind a stack of rotting crates. The door is heavy, made of old oak and iron. It creaks loudly as they push it open, revealing a stone staircase descending even deeper underground. "Another staircase?" Grace mutters. This place is like a labyrinth. As they step into the crypt, the temperature drops sharply. Their breath fogs in the air, and the feeling of being watched intensifies. The walls are lined with ancient stone coffins, each marked with runes and symbols. In the center of the crypt stands an altar, covered in a thick layer of dust. Grace wipes it clean and reveals an old book bound in leather. "This must be a grimoire," she says, opening it carefully. The pages are filled with intricate drawings and incantations. Meanwhile, upstairs, Jack and Sarah are reviewing the footage they captured. The camera picked up faint whispers and a dark shadow moving through the room. "We need to check on Grace and Mark," Jack says, feeling uneasy. As they head upstairs, they hear a loud crash from the basement. They rush down, finding the trapdoor open. "Grace! Mark!" Sarah calls out, but there's no response. In the crypt, Grace and Mark are oblivious to the commotion above. They're engrossed in the grimoire, trying to decipher its contents. "These spells, they're for summoning and banishing spirits," Grace says. "But this one, it's different. It's for binding." Suddenly, the symbols on the walls start to glow brighter, and a deep, guttural growl echoes through the crypt. Mark grabs Grace's arm. "We need to get out of here now." They run up the stairs, the growling growing louder, almost as if something is chasing them. As they reach the top, the trapdoor slams shut, trapping them inside. "Help! We're stuck!" Mark yells, pounding on the door. Jack and Sarah hear the muffled cries and rush to open the trapdoor. It takes all their strength, but they finally manage to lift it. Grace and Mark scramble out, breathless and terrified. "There's something down there," Grace gasps. something that's been imprisoned for centuries. They decide to regroup in the parlor, where they share their findings. The grimoire, the glowing symbols, and the malevolent presence in the crypt all point to one conclusion. The inn is built on a site of dark magic. "We need to figure out what that thing is and how to stop it," Jack says, his face grim. "Before it stops us." As they plan their next move, the feeling of unease lingers. The Red Lion holds many secrets, and whatever is trapped in the crypt is not going to let them go without a fight. After a restless night at the Red Lion Inn, the team decides to investigate another mysterious location tied to the strange occurrences. An ancient well hidden in the woods on the outskirts of Glastonbury. This well is said to have been a site of pagan rituals and dark magic, rumored to be a gateway to the spirit world. As they hike through the dense forest, the air grows thick with mist, and the trees seem to close in around them. Mark, always the joker, tries to lighten the mood. "Did anyone bring breadcrumbs? I'd rather not end up like Hansel and Gretel." Grace rolls her eyes. "Focus, Mark. This place has a dark history. Let's not take it lightly." They finally reach a clearing where the well stands, covered in moss and vines. The stones are weathered, and an eerie silence hangs in the air. Jack sets up the equipment, while Sarah and Grace start documenting the area. "This well dates back to the 6th century, Sarah explains, reading from her notes. "It was used in ancient Celtic rituals, some of which involved human sacrifices." Mark peers into the dark abyss of the well, feeling a chill run down his spine. "Let's hope none of those sacrifices are still hanging around." Grace starts the EVP recorder and asks, "Is there anyone here who wishes to communicate?" For a moment, there's only silence. Then, a faint whisper echoes from the depths of the well, too garbled to understand. The temperature drops suddenly, and the hair on the back of Jack's neck stands up. "Did you guys hear that?" Jack asks, his voice tense. Before anyone can answer, the ground around the well begins to tremble. The water inside the well starts bubbling, and a dark, shadowy figure rises from its depths. The figure is amorphous, shifting and writhing as if made of smoke and darkness. Mark stumbles back, his usual bravado gone. "What the hell is that?" The figure's eyes glow red, and it lets out a guttural growl. It lunges toward them, and they scatter, scrambling to get away. Jack manages to grab the camera, capturing the entity's terrifying form. "Run!" Grace yells, pulling Sarah away from the well. They race through the forest, the shadowy figure in pursuit. Branches scratch their faces, and roots trip their feet, but they don't stop until they reach the edge of the woods. Gasping for breath, they look back and see the figure retreating, dissolving into the mist. "What was that thing?" Sarah pants, her eyes wide with fear. Grace shakes her head. "I don't know, but it's connected to the well, and it's not happy we disturbed it." Shaken but determined, the team decides their next location will be the ruins of Glastonbury Abbey. The Abbey, once one of the richest in England, has a long history of hauntings and supernatural occurrences. They believe the answers to their questions might be found among the ancient stones. As they approach the ruins, the sky darkens, and a cold wind whistles through the crumbling walls. The Abbey's grandeur is still apparent despite its dilapidated state. Tall arches and towering pillars rise like skeletal remains against the sky. "This place is incredible," Jack says, setting up the camera to capture the haunting beauty of the ruins. Sarah nods. "And incredibly creepy. There have been reports of ghostly monks and strange lights here for centuries." They begin their investigation in the nave, where the shadows seem to dance in the flickering light of their flashlights. Grace feels a familiar chill and closes her eyes, reaching out with her senses. "There's a lot of residual energy here," she murmurs. "It's like the walls themselves remember." Mark spots something out of the corner of his eye and turns quickly, his flashlight illuminating a robed figure standing silently in the doorway. Guys, we've got company." The figure doesn't move, but its eyes seem to glow with an otherworldly light. Jack lifts the camera, capturing the apparition. "Is that a monk?" Grace steps forward cautiously, Who are you? Why are you here? The figure raises an arm, pointing toward the altar. Grace and the others follow its gaze and see a book lying on the stone surface, glowing faintly. The figure then fades into the shadows, leaving them alone in the eerie silence. They approach the altar, and Grace picks up the book, a heavy tome bound in leather. "This looks like another grimoire," she says, flipping through the pages. "But it's different from the one we found at the inn. This one seems to focus on summoning and controlling spirits." Mark, ever the skeptic, mutters, "Great, another book of spooky spells." Suddenly, a loud crash echoes through the abbey, and the ground trembles. They turn to see the shadowy figure from the well emerging from the darkness, more solid and menacing than before. Its eyes blaze with anger, and it lets out a roar that shakes the very stones of the abbey. "Move now," Jack shouts, grabbing the book and running toward the exit. The team sprints through the ruins, the figure hot on their heels. As they burst into the open air, the shadowy entity stops at the threshold, unable to leave the confines of the abbey. It roars in frustration, the sound echoing across the landscape. Breathless, they collapse on the grass, the ancient book clutched tightly in Jack's hands. "That thing is getting stronger," he says, his voice shaking. "And it's not going to stop until it gets what it wants." Grace looks back at the abbey, her face pale. "We need to find out how to stop it, before it stops us." The team regroups at their temporary headquarters, an old farmhouse just outside Glastonbury. After hours of research and cross-referencing the two grimoires, they discover a crucial piece of information. The shadowy entity is bound to specific sacred sites around Glastonbury, and the key to stopping it lies in the water of the Chalice Well. The Chalice Well, a tranquil garden with a well that has flowed continuously for over 2 millennia, is reputed to possess healing properties. However, legends also speak of its power to banish evil. Armed with this knowledge, the team sets out for the well, hoping to perform a ritual to banish the entity for good. As they approach the garden, the atmosphere shifts. The air feels charged with energy, and the normally peaceful surroundings seem foreboding. The well itself, covered in a wrought iron lid with a Vesica Piscis symbol, sits at the heart of the garden, surrounded by lush greenery and blooming flowers. "This place is beautiful," Sarah whispers, her voice filled with awe. "But I can feel the power here. It's almost overwhelming." Jack sets up the camera, capturing the serene yet eerie beauty of the site. "Let's hope this power works in our favor." Grace retrieves the grimoire, finding the page with the ritual instructions. "We need to draw water from the well and use it to create a protective circle. Then, we'll recite the incantation." Mark, carrying a silver chalice they found in the abbey, carefully lowers it into the well, drawing up the sacred water. As he pours the water to form a circle, the ground begins to tremble, and the air grows colder. The shadowy figure materializes at the edge of the garden, its eyes burning with rage. "It's here," Jack says, his voice tense. "We need to hurry." Grace begins the incantation, her voice strong and clear despite the growing fear. The entity advances, but as it reaches the edge of the circle, it recoils, unable to cross the barrier. The team holds their breath as Grace continues the ritual, the air crackling with energy. The entity thrashes and howls, its form flickering and shifting. Finally, with a deafening roar, it dissipates into the night, leaving the garden in eerie silence. Exhausted, the team collapses on the ground, their relief palpable. "Did we do it?" Mark asks, his voice shaky. Grace nods, a tired smile on her face. "I think we did, for now at least." The team regroups at their temporary headquarters, an old farmhouse just outside Glastonbury. After hours of research and cross-referencing the two grimoires, they discover a crucial piece of information. The shadowy entity is bound to specific sacred sites around Glastonbury, and the key to stopping it lies in the water of the Chalice Well. The Chalice Well, a tranquil garden with a well that has flowed continuously for over 2 millennia, is reputed to possess healing properties. However, legends also speak of its power to banish evil. Armed with this knowledge, The team sets out for the well, hoping to perform a ritual to banish the entity for good. As they approach the garden, the atmosphere shifts. The air feels charged with energy, and the normally peaceful surroundings seem foreboding. The well itself, covered in a wrought iron lid with a Vesica piscis symbol, sits at the heart of the garden, surrounded by lush greenery and blooming flowers. "This place is beautiful," Sarah whispers, her voice filled with awe. "But I can feel the power here. It's almost overwhelming." Jack sets up the camera, capturing the serene yet eerie beauty of the sight. "Let's hope this power works in our favor." Grace retrieves the grimoire, finding the page with the ritual instructions. "We need to draw water from the well and use it to create a protective circle. Then, we'll recite the incantation." Mark, carrying a silver chalice they found in the abbey, carefully lowers it into the well, drawing up the sacred water. As he pours the water to form a circle, the ground begins to tremble, and the air grows colder. The shadowy figure materializes at the edge of the garden, its eyes burning with rage. "It's here," Jack says, his voice tense. "We need to hurry." Grace begins the incantation, her voice strong and clear despite the growing fear. The entity advances, but as it reaches the edge of the circle, it recoils, unable to cross the barrier. The team holds their breath as Grace continues the ritual, the air crackling with energy. The entity thrashes and howls, its form flickering and shifting. Finally, with a deafening roar, it dissipates into the night, leaving the garden in eerie silence. Exhausted, the team collapses on the ground, their relief palpable. "Did we do it?" Mark asks, his voice shaky. Grace nods, a tired smile on her face. "I think we did, for now at least."